folks, I'm Des with DesFit, and this is the new DIRETO X direct drive bike trainer from Elite. So when Elite launched the original DIRETO about 2 years ago, it made some waves because it was a nice riding and pretty accurate direct drive bike trainer that came in well under $1,000. And since then, they came out with a follow-up version that fine-tuned the power accuracy from the original plus or minus 2.5% to plus or minus 2%. And then they also included a riser block. But it didn't necessarily address the noise, which was okay at slower speeds, but definitely made a bit of a ruckus at higher speeds. But today, Elite is launching the DIRETO X, which fine-tunes that power accuracy down even further to plus or minus 1.5%. But they also made some changes on the inside as well as the outside that may seem subtle at first, but actually pay off in a number of ways. There's now going to be bigger magnets inside, which helps increase the maximum resistance up to 2100 watts at 40 kilometers an hour versus the 2000 watts of the original DIRETO, neither of which I can actually hit, but I'm sure some of you out there can hit those numbers. And then it can also simulate a grade up to 18%, where the original DIRETO could only simulate up to 14%. And then there's also going to be some changes to the case where they actually molded it differently, so it's going to be able to accommodate longer cage derailleurs. And that's not only for mountain bikes, but there's a lot of people that are running gravel bikes with one-by drivetrains now. But the most notable change is that Elite claims that they reduced the noise by 50%. And I was an original DIRETO owner, and I used that as my primary trainer for about 9 months. So I'm very familiar with the sound that came out of it, and it definitely made itself heard at higher speeds. So that's everything new with the DIRETO, but let's go over some of the core features that are going to be remaining the same in case you're not familiar with the DIRETO. So first of all, it's going to have a 4.2 kilogram flywheel, which isn't necessarily the heaviest thing out there, but it does provide a nice ride feel for its weight. It's compatible with 130 and 135 millimeter quick release axles straight out of the box, and it does include an actual quick release. And then they also do include 142 by 12 millimeter through axle adapters. It comes with a Shimano cassette body that's going to be compatible with 9 to 11 speed drivetrains, and it also does come with spacers depending on your cassette. Now, one thing to note though is that it doesn't come with the actual cassette. That's something you're going to have to purchase on your own. So this is a 105 11 speed cassette that I picked up for about 40 to 50 bucks, but do also consider that you'll need a cassette lock ring tool as well as a chain whip to install the actual cassette. And then in addition, you also can get Campy free hub bodies as well as XD driver bodies, and they also do have boost through axle adapters, and all of those are going to be sold separately. Just like the original DIRETO, the DIRETO X uses ANT+ FEC as well as Bluetooth FTMS to connect it to pretty much any device you can throw at it. So what's nice about the Bluetooth FTMS is that it's going to make things really easy to connect to Zwift using an Apple TV. So for the most ideal Zwift experience, you're going to want to transmit power, cadence, trainer control, as well as heart rate. But with the Apple TV, it only has 2 available Bluetooth channels other than the one that it uses for remote. So with the Bluetooth FTMS, what it does is it transmits the power, cadence, as well as trainer control all through one channel, leaving that other Bluetooth channel available for a Bluetooth heart rate sensor. And then if you don't have an Apple TV, you can also hook it up to an iPad or an iPhone. Okay, so before we go over the sound samples and talk about the power accuracy, let's just go over what it actually takes to get it out of the box and assembled and ready to go. The assembly is going to be identical to the original DIRETO. So basically, there's going to be 3 legs that you're going to actually need to install on the trainer. The middle leg is a stationary leg, and then the 2 side legs can fold in for storage. The legs attach via Allen bolts, and what's nice is that they do include the Allen key to attach those legs. One thing I will mention though is that I think the power cord is going to be a little bit short, and I think it would be a little bit more convenient if it plugged in through the back rather than kind of the front of the unit. And then lastly, you're going to need to install your cassette of choice. So all in all, I think it took me about 7 minutes to get everything up and running, but I'm pretty familiar with the experience, so it may take 10 to 15 minutes at most. But now let's get into the 2 things that probably mean the most in terms of a direct drive bike trainer, and that's going to be the power accuracy as well as the noise. In regards to noise, like I was saying, I was a longtime owner of the original DIRETO, and it was perfectly fine at like 10 to 15 miles an hour, but anything over that, and it definitely made itself heard. But I'm super happy to report with the DIRETO X, they definitely have reduced the noise substantially. So that 50% claim, I don't have a decibel meter or anything like that, but it's a lot quieter. In regards to how the sound compares to some other trainers from some other manufacturers, I'll have a follow-up video where I'll do that comparison, so make sure to subscribe to get a notification when that video comes out. But now let's go ahead and talk about power accuracy. So with power accuracy, I basically compared it with 3 other power meters: the Fivera Asiomas, the Vector 3s from Garmin, as well as the 4i's Precision. So the 4i's tends to run a little bit hot just because it's a left-only power meter and I do have a left-right imbalance. So I'll be mainly referencing the Fivera Asiomas as well as the Vector 3s. And I've compared those against the Tax Neo 2, which is arguably a very accurate trainer. So the Fivera Asiomas and the Vector 3s are what we're going to pay attention to. On this first example here, I did have a couple dropouts from the Asiomas, and then, like I said, the 4i's ran a little bit high in some spots, but this is overall some pretty good stuff right here. It's pretty tough to complain about these numbers. And then on this next example, you will again see the 4i's running a little bit high with one little small dropout, but with the DIRETO X compared with the Vector 3s, that's some pretty solid numbers being reported, only being 4 watts off on the whole duration of the ride. Now, for the sake of clarity, let's just remove the 4i's from the dataset so we can see more clearly what's going on here. So other than these 2 brief dropouts from the Edge 520 Plus, which didn't occur with the Forerunner 945, it's essentially just one nice big fat magic marker for the power. It's super tidy, and that's exactly what we want to see. And if we zoom in on this first set of sprints, it was ever so slightly higher in a couple spots. And then if we look at this 30-second effort, it held very solid throughout. And then if we take a look at these 2 sharp sprints right at the end here, good stuff. And then in regards to erg mode responsiveness, it took about 4 to 5 seconds to kick in with Zwift, which I think is probably fine if you're not doing sprints that are under 30 seconds, but it was a little bit wobbly at holding a constant wattage, even with consistent cadence. It was nothing horrible by any means, but it wasn't quite as consistent as I've experienced with some other trainers. And then one more thing I do want to mention is that I also did see some spikes in cadence like I experienced with the original DIRETO, and what you'll notice is that on almost all of these occasions, it happened with a sudden increase in power. Elite is pretty upfront with it right in their instruction manual, saying it's not going to be perfect. So if you want perfectly accurate cadence, you may want to invest in a separate cadence sensor, but I think it's going to work for most people because it was just spikes for me, and it didn't happen for like just minutes at a time. So to wrap things up, when Elite told me about the DIRETO X, I was like, neat, it's a good little update, but I wasn't like flipping out over anything like that. But after using it for the last month or so, I forgot how good the ride feel is for the 4.2 kilogram flywheel. And then adding in the fact that it did reduce the noise significantly, definitely makes the DIRETO X a nice solid contender for that sub $1,000 direct drive bike trainer. Anyhow, if you liked the video or found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button down below, as it does help the channel a lot and I appreciate it. And also, make sure to subscribe for plenty of sports and fitness tech good stuff that's coming soon. In the meantime, happy riding.